Hey, Lea Louise here, and look, I have scraps. Oh my goodness, these are long, narrow strips of assorted sizes, and look at what I've made. Get a little bit of rope, wrap your coils with beautiful leftover fabrics, and you can make little pieces, big pieces, and even a basket to hold everything. I can't wait to show you. Look at this, it has handles. I'm so excited. Let me show you how this works. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be back. I have my channel again and my email, and we can connect and talk and watch videos. That was a crazy couple weeks, and I'm so glad it's over. And I am just thrilled to share this with you. Now, many of you know I've moved 7 times in 7 months, and I keep saying that because it's just so hard to believe. And I've found lots of scraps, lots of fabric tucked in here and there in strips and pieces. And so the first thing I wanted to do is use some of it up. And this is a fabulous way to use up fabric. I started just doing these little pieces. They're a coaster. They can be a little plant holder, above the sink kind of a thing. And all it takes is clothesline cord. I prefer the 100% cotton. I couldn't get any this time. So this has a nylon core, which seemed to work okay. And so with 8 feet and some scraps, I just wrapped my coils and sewed up a storm. This is what I just finished, and I'm so excited. I used the extra strips. Now, these are all 1/4-inch fabric strips that I wrap around this. And I did sort of low volume in the middle just to kind of create some interest so it's not blank. But I love the mix of colors around the outer edge. I thought it would be too dark a contrast, but I put the darkest right here to kind of create a margin, a line, a barrier, whatever, to distinction between the colors, and I love this. And then I have more strips. So let me show you. When I was going through all my stuff, I kept coming up with these pieces that I have cut over time. When I'm trimming my fat quarters, when I'm trimming my quilt sandwich, there's always, pieces left over. And I've gotten into the habit of tucking them in a bag or a basket, and I've sort of been able to consolidate them over these last few months. And that's what all these are. So I have these that are pretty much cut to 1/4-inch widths, and then this is a pack of just wide. Most of them are 1 inch or smaller, maybe 1 1/4, and a few pieces because black and white is fun. But you can see I have some narrow pieces, and I still have some sorting to do. But this is what I'm going to do to make my next project. Now, I just bought some inexpensive 100% cotton cording, and you want it to be 1/4 inch or less. And the largest I can buy is 100 feet. And this piece here is 100 feet altogether. And it measures 21 plus by 17 inches. So it's really good size. I thought by starting it with an elongated center with an oval, it'd be more of a table runner, but I would have needed to make it this longer. But this is going to be great in the center of the table. I can put a bowl, a plate, a platter, anything that I want. And it's sturdy. Look at this. Look at how well this holds up. It's not floppy and flimsy. Okay, I'm sold on this stuff. So I got all this out of a book that I purchased on Amazon. Actually, I got the Kindle edition. It's called ZigZag Rope Sewing Projects. And I'll put the link down below. And it's by Catherine Lyle, and I absolutely love her book. Now, when I'm trimming fat quarters for a quilt, sometimes, I'll cut 5, 10, 15-inch pieces, depending on what I'm working on. I like the pre-cut sizes, and I'll end up with 1 inch or 2 at the end. And so these are all 1-inch pieces, and what I'm going to do is stack them up, and I'm just going to cut them into 1/4-inch strips. And that way I can use this same process. And this is the bowl that I'm showing you, this fabric here. And there are some other pieces of turquoise in here that I may go ahead and pull out and add to this because the colors match really well. And you see, this is a great way to keep these little pieces. And whether they're particularly long or short, you can use them in any size. You can make them wider as well. It's just your strips will have a thicker look to them. And I like leaving a bit of fabric, a bit of the cord between my fabric. And that way, it's not a completely solid color. It looks more mottled, and I like that look. You can wrap it so they're side by side, so the fabric touches itself all the way across, and you get more of a solid look to the strip that you're sewing. And so that's just purely preference. So what I would recommend, find a piece of rope. There's probably something out in the garage, or maybe trim your clothesline if you have one. But get about 5 or 6 feet and just wrap some coil around it and put 2 pieces together and sew it, and just see what you think and what you like. I'm going to show you how to coil it to get the small circle in the center, how to do an oval. Oh my gosh, there's just so much involved here. And I'm afraid this may be a long video because I've got so much I want to show you and so much I want to do. Okay, I have to stop right now because I think I've said way too much and I'm not showing you enough. So let's get started. You're going to love what I have to show you coming up. This is a very simple project to start. One thing you want to do is the end of your rope is going to probably have something to secure it. In this case, it's a piece of clear plastic tape. Cut it off and throw it away. All right, I'm ready to get started. I have my rope together. I measured out my center. I'm making a oval basket from the ZigZag Rope sewing project book. And I'm going to demonstrate how we get started. And I'm making a few modifications on how to finish it, but this will give you an idea how this works. I did sew a little bit right here together with a zigzag, just so while I was talking it wouldn't all fall apart. So I want a pretty wide zigzag, not my widest, because I'll use that on the outside of the basket on the outer edges. But in the center, I want things to be close and tight to hold it together. So I'm going to hold this piece straight back and just kind of push that in a bit. It's not really going to matter because we're going to pick that up around the back. And I'm going to start with my zigzag and come all the way to the end. The center point in your foot right here will have a mark, and that's where the center of your stitch is. You want to keep that point right along the line where you're connecting your 2 pieces of rope. That way you're going to have a zigzag on each side, and you won't cut it too close and it could pull apart. So, because once this is together, it is super sturdy. All right. Get the zigzag to start. Okay, now that's a little on the narrow side. I'm going to bump it up. I bumped it up to a 4, and I'm going to replace this, make it in the center. There we go. Now, I had an issue. 7 moves in 7 months. I know, I'm repetitive, but that just cracks me up to even say it. I can't find my seam ripper. So I'm using, this is the gauge from my walking foot. And it has a little, edge, but a pencil, a wooden dowel, a stiletto, anything like that, including your seam ripper, will help initially when you start, because there's not a lot to hold on to. So what I do is I kind of bring this in, and don't try and get your fingers up close, because if this slips out, your finger's going to go underneath, and we don't want that to happen. Instead, hold it together out here, and see, that's going to stay, and it's not going to do anything. What's that? Oh, that's just a shadow. All right, so I'm going to come all the way out to the end, and see how I'm pushing that together nice and tight, and all the way out. Now, I'm just going to turn around and do the same thing back to the beginning. And that's just going to be a bit of a secure lock stitch, just to make sure everything's holding up the way I want it. So again, I want to put this in the center, and I'm going to start all the way to the back. Now, the reason that's being stuck is my presser foot doesn't have an equal amount of rope underneath it. So I'll take a couple stitches and I'll manually move it. once I get rope that's behind the needle, this is going to pull forward. So that'll happen only on your first turn. So I'm going to come down to the end, and when I get pretty close, I want to stop, and I'm just going to see if this will go around, because I want that to come around to lock in those loose edges, and it will. So I want to stop to the inside, and actually I want to sew all the way out here. You see where that's coming together? I want to bring this around so it's going to catch all that, but I want to sew to that edge right there. Now, this is a little different than in the book, and it's just sort of me thinking, this might work well. So I'm going to bring it all the way out, stop my needle to the inside with something other than my finger. I'm just going to push those loose pieces in. Now, you are going to be amazed at just how forgiving this project is. Now, I'm going to sew across the end just to catch those extra pieces and kind of come around the curve a little bit. And I'll swing it a little as I go until I get all the way out to the outer rope. And there we are. Okay, so I want to make sure everything is nice and straight. And if you have pieces that are sort of poking, just kind of tuck them in, because that's going to be grabbed by the stitch from the top thread and the bottom thread, and it's going to be concealed. Whoops. All right. Get that in the center, see what I mean? And so when you stop, just always double check where you are sewing so that you're in the center. Okay, I need to push this through a little bit. Okay, so now as I come around, I'm going to just slowly stitch, and what I do is I pivot with my needle to the outside, and I'll stop and go around the corner, but by stopping to the inside, my stitches, or excuse me, stopping to the outside like this, get out there, I'm pivoting, and I will be reinforcing the inner stitches and not skipping any out here. Because if I stop here and turn, I'm going to miss a few stitches on this outer piece. Is it critical? Probably not. It's just me being kind of anal. Anything I make, I don't ever want it to fall apart. So I'm always coming up with little things along the way to reinforce and make sure everything stays together. Okay, now you see how fast you can go through the center here. Now, I'm going to do this a little slowly, but I can do it without stopping. I just want to make sure I'm getting both my pieces. And now that I've gone through this, I'm going to widen my stitch to its widest point. And, whoops, sorry, hit the camera. With my stitch at the widest point, I'm also going to keep those stitches somewhat close together initially. Probably about one more round, and then I'll spread them apart so they're not right on top of each other. Okay, and as I'm going around, I'm making sure that this seam falls right in the center of my presser foot so that I know I'm getting my zigzag on both sides, on both pieces of the rope, and that's going to secure it. Now, see how I'm kind of bending? I need to make sure I'm keeping this straight, and that's from me the way I'm turning and pulling. Keep this nice and straight on both sides. And as you're sewing, you always want your rope that you're feeding in to come in on this side. That way the sewn piece will be over here. So as it gets bigger, it's going to be going this way, and you're not going to have a bunch in here that you're trying to manage turning around. Okay, now I'm going to space that stitch out just a little bit more so that it's not quite so tight together. So I have the widest, and I have it set at about a 3.0. which would be, I don't know, that's what, centimeters, I think. But it's a 3. But do something that works and something that you're comfortable with. Okay, so now I need to sew this until this piece measures 7 inches from side to side, here to here. And so right now, this piece will put me at 2 inches, and that gives me 5 more inches to go. So I am going to work on this, and I will be back at that point, because then we start to make the bowl, and that's what's fun. And I'll tell you, it's my first time, so we're going to do this together and see how it works. So I've gotten my piece, my base, where I want it, and I'm going to start creating the sides that will curve upward. So if I keep going around flat, I'm going to get a nice big flat piece. But by turning this up, I'm going to create a side. And I want to keep it at the same angle, which is about 45 degrees. And as I'm doing that, I want to make sure I keep this flat. I don't want to twist it, turn it, bow it, anything like that. And I'm just going to do this. And come around the corner. It's going to take me a couple minutes to get the hang of how to hold this. But it's not difficult. It's just you want to make sure that you keep that angle in place, so that you get a good curvature to your bowl. All right, let me straighten my rope out. It's beginning to twist here. And what I do is, once I'm done with the outer coil, I just put this whole thing on the floor, because the rope will feed out pretty much on its own. I might have to untwist it when I get down to the end, but for the most part, it works really well. And so you can see I'm wanting to keep this up, and I'm just using this hand with my hand open underneath, just to hold everything right in place. And if you get to a little kink in the rope, just straighten it out. It's going to be fine. It'll fit right in and snug up with everything that's going to be attached to it. Okay, and again, I'm just going to work that out with my fingers, and see, it stays twisted. It's where the rope folds, and we just want to straighten that out. And you can see now I'm starting to get a curve in the bottom of my basket. And what I want to do now is bring it up straight. So instead of holding it at an angle like this, I'm going to hold it up and down. And then that way it's going to give me a nice straight edge. It'll stack the rope on top of each other. Instead of down here, it was side by side. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue going around. And I need to be sure that I hold this upright the whole time. And what you're actually doing is putting your fingers underneath to hold that up. to keep it up as high as possible. All right, well, that seems to be all there is to it. It goes pretty easily. You see what I'm doing. So let me go ahead and I'll get up to a little bit, maybe an inch or so, and then I want to start adding some fabrics in here. So I will be back with you shortly and show you how that works. You can see how I'm getting a nice straight side here. So I have the bottom that comes down flat, and then I have this bit of a curve. But then when I turned my basket so it's straight up and down, I'm getting these nice straight sides. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to wrap some fabric around my cord just to brighten these baskets up a bit. And I'm thinking these are going to be great for like scrap bags and such, or scrap fabric. And let's see, I need to be able to get in here a little bit. And what I'm going to do is just tuck that. I'm going to stick my needle in to hold that fabric right in place. Let me do it one more time. Okay, so the needle's holding my fabric. And I am going to wrap this around. And I'm going to do it in such a way that I can loop this around that end piece right there. So I'm going to tuck that under. Actually use my curve to my advantage, tuck that under and hold it, and then just wrap this piece on top, tuck this in, gonna roll that over, and there we go. So I have this section of the rope wrapped, and my fabric is pretty well secured. I'm going to go ahead and sew just past this fabric, so I make sure I've got a good tight hold there with the stitching. All right, now I'm going to continue around a few more rows, and I am using this 1/4 inch fabric. These are pieces, my scrap pieces that I showed you I keep in the bag, and most of them run anywhere from 20 to 30 inches long. And I want to leave some space between my strips as I'm placing it in. Now, you can certainly put them close together to get more of a solid coverage. But I just like seeing the rope through there. I think it kind of adds some interest and gives it a little more texture, because when you see how this sort of candy cane stripe works around, I think it's fun. So I'm going to just hold this with this hand and guide this with my fingers. And don't worry about these extra pieces. A lot of it's going to get caught up, these strings, a lot of it's going to get caught up as we sew, and then we can trim off the extra. But I still need to continue holding this basket straight up. Oh, you can almost see it there. Okay, let me do it this way. But I want to make sure I hold it up straight. Easier said than done, my goodness. There, I think I've got it. And I'm just going to work my way around. There we go. Now, when you wrap the cord and sew it, it does take time, more time. It's going to slow you down because you have to stop and wrap repeatedly as you go. So I'm only going to probably do 4 or 5 rows, but I think it's just going to make the basket so much more attractive and add a lot of interest to it. If I was just going to use it in the bathroom to store towels or something like that, I probably wouldn't worry about it so much, but this may be in a place where it's visible, and I just want it to look wonderful. So let's see what I can do here. Let me get all this together. so I'm going to just continue working my way around, and you can see over here how that's attached and how that's going to look. It's going to make some great contrast. All right, I'll be back when I'm done with these rows, and then we'll get this basket finished. This is the one I am really excited about. I think it's the handles, but I love just doing the strip. And, you know, each of these, they take an afternoon, if that. And it goes really fast, particularly this one, because the more fabric you use, the longer it's going to take because you have to wrap it. And this was just so. And look at it, it's beautiful. Oh my gosh, I am so excited. And I have so many uses, and I'm going to need more. And I just see them all lined up on the shelf. Oh, I can't wait. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you had a lot of fun, and I hope you are going to try your own and come up with something wonderful that you can use or as a gift for somebody. During the warm summer months, we don't all want to quilt, but here's some great ideas that keeps you sewing, gets you using up your scraps, and finishing some wonderful gift ideas. Look at how beautiful this turned out. Oh my goodness, I love how the colors all worked. This dark line really stands out, and it makes a nice transition between the low volume, the background that's really light, and the darker colors. But just that ring around the edge, oh my goodness, I think it finishes it wonderfully. Now, let's go on. There's still more. Let's jump right in and get started. I have 100 feet of rope here. And the difference from this and the 100% cotton is you can see it has this little bit of a nylon core in the middle. And I'm not sure how that's going to affect the results, but it's the only thing I couldn't find. Usually I can get 100% cotton at the hardware store, but I didn't this time. So I have 3 different fabrics I'm using. I have, 10 strips of this with a green print on it. And this is a floral with a white background. I have 6 strips, and I have 2 strips of this. And each of them measure approximately 40 to 42 inches. Now, I'm just going to put this rope in my lap. I'm going to start this one as a oval, because what I want to do is make a table runner. And I want it to be longer and narrow. So I'm going to start at this end, and I'm going to use a zigzag. And I'm going to take it pretty wide, probably as wide as it'll go, so that I can get both sides easily. Now, once I get down here, I'm going to come around and bring this in. So I'm going to be working on this from a couple directions. So the first thing I'm going to do is just press these 2 together. Now, don't laugh, but I've moved so much I can't find my seam ripper. So I'm using the guide to my walking foot because it has a little poker end. It has this straight end, but it also has this. I'm going to just start with my needle on one side. I'm going to set that aside for now. And I'm just going to sew from one end to the other. Now, as I get down here, I want to hold it really close together because I don't want a gap in there. And so that my finger doesn't get too close, I'm going to use this just to press it in. Like I said, ordinarily a stiletto, a little wooden dowel, a seam ripper, whatever you have will work, but it is helpful to have an extra tool just so you don't get caught up into any difficult situations. So I'm going to come down here to the end, and I'm going to get my needle on the right side, and I'm going to come back down. Whoops. Sometimes when you're first getting started, the feed dogs have a little trouble moving the rope depending on how thick the rope is. And that's something that you're going to want to find out, is how much rope you can get under here. And the book spells all that out and gives you ideas of numbers to use as far as which size can work best. Now I'm going to cut these pieces as I go. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come out to the end, and then I'm going to wrap this around. First time I've done this, so let's see what we can do here. All right, nope, we gotta come out farther. So if I come like this, and I'm just going to press it down between where the seam is going to go. You see that? And I'm using this to press my rope. And just take it slow so it catches those stitches. And we're just going to go straight. Now you want to make sure you're not putting tension, you're not pulling anything. If you pull this, then you're going to make it curve one way or the other. If you pull this, you just want to go nice and straight. So don't try and stretch anything, just let the feed dogs draw this through. Now this is where you need to take a little minute to get yourself around the curve. Just take it easy, a few stitches at a time. And I probably take 3 or 4 stitches, and then I turn. And as I'm turning, I'm putting my needle in the side that's been sewn, my base that's already together. And then I'm just letting this wrap around and get attached. And you see how fast you can go. And once these corners get a little bigger, they're going to be easier just to swing around. But this will take us a few minutes on this one, but you'll see how much easier. So as I'm sewing, I'm using these fingers and I'm just drawing this around to get my curve in. See how I do that? I'm just letting this rope here fall in place as I'm turning this one with this hand. And then once I get around, we're just going to zoom and get down to the other end. Now around this center, I've used my stitch pretty close together. And because this is the middle, I just want to make sure it's nice and sturdy. As I come around the other side, I'm going to take some more rope out here. I'm going to start adding some fabric. So I want to get around this curve. And you see how I can keep going. I just make sure that this center of my presser foot is in line with the space between the two. And I want to make sure that that space is closed off. So as I sew, it's getting sealed up. Okay, now let me show you. We're going to put our first piece in. And I have a couple, they're very similar. I want to get the skinnier one. And they're not all the same size. Because as I'm cutting, sometimes it's just left over what I was using. Now this is a little crazy. That's not even a, gosh, I don't know, it's tiny. But I'm going to cut that part off. It's too small. I just want to, cut what I have. And when I have scraps or end of trimming, then I go ahead and, save these pieces. Now, what I do is I'm going to put this strip underneath the piece I'm adding on, underneath the outside rope, and I'm just going to flip this over, just like that. And see how it just tucks in there? And then, okay, I'm going to have to hold that here. So I'll hold it this way. And I want to bring, now remember, keep your foot off the presser foot, because as you're trying to finagle this, you might get anxious and push your foot down, and you don't want to sew your finger. The first one takes a minute, and it took me a minute on the other ones that I did. And it's just a matter of kind of getting yourself in place. There we go. Okay, and then once I get a needle into that fabric, it's being held down, and I'm just going to wrap this around. Now, the wrap can be done in a number of different ways, and I like having a space. a space between my strip as I'm wrapping it, because then the natural fiber shows through. And this I'm kind of doing in all low volume fabrics and kind of cream and off-white colors. And I want to let the rope kind of show through. And you see there's not much pattern on this, but just having this fabric is going to add some color to it. And don't worry about threads, we'll trim them all after. The ones that don't get caught up in the sewing. So I'm going to take this down to this end, and I'm just going to tuck that in, make sure it's nice and close. And I want to stop on the inside. And so I'm going to wrap this around. And I'll just take it out to about where the end is. And there is no right or wrong. This is all just about what you have on hand, what fabric you have, what size it is, and you just kind of go with it and get creative. Do a small piece first and see what you think, and then you can start with another and see what works for you. And that's where I started with the small coasters, because those were really easy. It takes only about 8 feet of rope to make a small coaster, and it works out perfectly. Now this is not even the same fabric. This had brown, and this has sort of a rosy color. So what I'm going to do is bring this around down here like this, and I'm going to take this one here, and I'm going to just tuck it right in. See how I did that? So I'm going to tuck that one in right there and sew to that point. Okay, now that it's in place, it's not going to go anywhere. I can do the same here. So I take that piece. You saw how I did that, right? Let me see. Let's do more of a close-up so you can see better. Okay, that's a little closer. And so what I've done is I have this piece here, and I just kind of tuck it down and around and just get my needle in that strip of fabric, and that's going to hold it while I start my wrap. So I'm going to just get enough here to take me down to the curve. And you see right there I have a little bit poking out. You see that little corner right there? But that's okay. When I come back around on the other side, I'm going to pick that up. Now I have to be careful. This is nice and straight. I'm getting a little curve here, which tells me I'm probably pulling this too tight. So I just need to watch what I'm doing and keep a consistent tension. I do just want to show you this real quick. Remember there was a piece that sort of was extending out. That's where I joined the two together, the two fabrics. So when I bring this in, I'm just going to put it up right next to it, close, and it's going to catch it in there and it'll hold it. Never to be seen again. After using all those strips that I showed you earlier, my piece now measures, it's about 11 inches across, I think, 8. Yep, just shy, about 11, 10 and a half inches, and it's 15 inches long. So that's not quite as big as I want, so I have some more fabric that I'm going to go ahead and use. And they're in these green tones. So I made some coasters. These are the ones I started out with, and these are the round coils where you just go circular instead of oval. And at the end of this video, I'll show you how to do the circular one. It's pretty darn easy. And you can see each of these, I did different colors. I did, some lights on the outside, and like this one had the light on the inside. And then this one I went real dark on the outside. So it's just kind of fun to mix it up. And I wanted to see just how this would all look. And I have these fabrics. I still have some left over, quite a bit actually. And I'm going to use these on the outside of this piece. So at this point, I'm ending right here, right on the curve, and I'm going to pick up with this one. And then I'm just going to mix and match a bunch of different colors, because I think it'd be fun to see how they turn out. Where, see, these are continuous colors for a number of rows through here. I want to see how it looks when I use pieces all around and change it up. I think that'll be fun, sort of more of a confetti look. And some are prints and some are more solids, etc. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to get this one on and start sewing. And then when I get to the end of this round is when I'll start mixing it up. So just wait and see. I think it's going to be wonderful. And since I showed you these coasters, I want to demonstrate how to start the circular coil instead of the oval. It's much the same. It's just a little bit different about how you secure the center. So take a look. And if any of this interests you, make sure you check out Catherine Lyle's book, The ZigZag Rope Sewing Project. I have the link down below. There are so many different ideas in there, so many different projects that I'm sure there'll be a lot you can find to make yourself. So let's go ahead. I want to show you how to start this, and then I think we're finished. We have two steps here. First is our initial coil, and we're going to let this end fray and just loosen it up, because that way, I want to actually turn this direction. That way it'll snug in together and I can sew right over it. And just tuck it in there and start twirling around. I actually find it easier to lay it down on a flat surface, because in my fingers it tends to wiggle. And this first little bit gets a little tight because there's hardly anything to work with. And I know you're having a hard time seeing. I'm trying to keep my hands as open as possible. So I have my little centerpiece right there, and I'm going to make about 3 rounds. So there's 2, and I'll go 3. And then what I'm going to do is use a straight stitch to crisscross back and forth, and that's going to hold my center together. And I'm just going to use a regular stitch. Now remember, you've got to use a big needle. This is like sewing on jeans. You want to get a size 16 needle. You want either thread to match if that's what your goal is. Alternatively, you can use different colored threads, like a multicolor thread would make a pretty design. Now I'm going to begin the zigzag. So I'm going to set up my zigzag stitch, and I'm going to have the stitches pretty close together and not real wide, because I want to, well, actually, there we go. I want to have everything nice and snug. So I'm going to start right here in the middle with a zigzag, and I'm just going to go back and forth right around the center. Now, part of the reason why making a little bigger coil could be advantageous is that you would be able then to have more to hold on to. But this works pretty good for me. And so I'm just going around that center circle, and I'm just getting everything kind of sewn together. Okay, so I've gone around that initial circle. Now what I'm going to do is start doing my round. What's really important when you're sewing is that your needle goes in one and out the other. So as you're zigzagging, you want to go between both of those pieces, because you're sewing them together. And I'm just going to go around this inner loop. And then once we go through this, we'll get to our outer edge, and it goes so much quicker. And that's where you can really have some fun with some design work. See, once you get out here, everything starts going a little bit more quickly. And we've got that one. Now I'm going to make my stitch a bit bigger here. Now that I'm getting past the center, and then this is the stitch I'll go with through the rest. Now what I do here is I'm going to just turn this around to get me back to the beginning point. This is where I want to be. I want to have my coil, and then I want to have my loose piece over here. And we'll just come around. So this is where we left space between the fabric, and then here we wrapped it more closely, so you get what do I want to say, a longer strip of solid. You get more of the color. All right, so we're at a point. Let's just kind of go another half a row here. Get some white space in there. And just keep working around. I hope you enjoyed these projects today. This was such fun to share with you. And I'm really excited to be back and being able to do videos again. And I'm trying to clear out scraps and clear out all the things that I've accumulated these last few months. So lots of scrappy projects coming up. So keep an eye out. Well, have a fantastic rest of your day. I'm so glad we got to get together. And I'm looking forward to a lot more scrappy videos. I have a lot of fabric to work through. So enjoy, take care. It's always such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you again for joining me.